Hello, and welcome to our podcast, Acts, Verse by Verse, brought to you by Teleios. This captivating podcast will detail each verse of the book of Acts, which chronicles the early history of the Christian church after Jesus' ascension into heaven. Thanks for joining us in this exciting biblical journey.
Hi, I'm William Stewart, co-founder of Teleios. Welcome back to our verse-by-verse study on the book of Acts. We've been focusing on the early church in this book, Acts, a great historical narrative of the beginning of the church. And so far, the church has been Jewish, small, located in Jerusalem. It is signified by community and signs and wonders and being led by the apostles. That's about to change. One of the 7 deacons, a godly man, Stephen, has been arrested and he's been accused by false witnesses at the end of Acts 6 of speaking against the temple, blaspheming against Moses and God, and claiming that Christ would destroy the temple and change the customs of the Jews. So the high priest at the beginning of 7 looked at him and said, "Are these things so?" Stephen answers in a pretty amazing sermon based in the history of Israel to show that the Jews in their accusations were wrong and were in sin. So there are 3 great reviews of the history of Israel in the epistles, the apostolic letters to the church from Romans to Revelation 3. One is here by Paul in Acts 13 and also in Hebrews chapter 11, and all I think with slightly different purposes. So here the focus will be on the law and several points that Stephen's going to make strongly. So he says in 2, we'll cover 7 verses today, the portion at the beginning about Abraham. So men and brethren, fathers, hearken, otherwise listen. The glory of God appeared to our father Abraham when he was in Mesopotamia. So this is where he was from, Ur of the Chaldees, before he dwelt in Haran. That's in Syria, what is modern Syria, and he traveled there after he left Ur. And said unto him, God said unto Abraham, "Get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred, and come to the land which I will show thee." This is Genesis 12:1. Then came he out of the land of Chaldeans. The Chaldeans were the Mesopotamians, and dwelt in Haran. And from thence his father was dead. And we learned this in the last 2 verses of chapter 11 of Genesis. He removed him into his land where he now dwelt, and he gave him no inheritance in it. So after Haran, God brought him down to what is now Israel and did not give him an inheritance. He, as it said on him, he set his foot and he sojourned, because his promise, as we know from Hebrews 11, is in a future country in God's kingdom. And he promised that would give him to him as a possession and to his seed after him, yet he had no child. And God spake on the wise that his seed would sojourn in a strange land and would bring them into bondage and entreat evil for 400 years. This is towards the end of Genesis 15. And the nation to whom they will be in bondage, I will judge, also in the same chapter, said God, and after that they shall come forth and serve me in this place. Okay, so this is Abraham. What's the importance of Abraham? Abraham is vitally important and really more important than Moses, the Mosaic covenant, compared to the Abrahamic covenant. God made a covenant with Abraham with 3 promises: that he would have a child, he would be the father of a great nation, this is Israel, and he would be a blessing to all nations, this is Messiah. The child Isaac was given to Abraham during his lifetime, I think, as a sign that he would complete the other two promises, which were, of course, after his death. The rest of the story of Scripture is the completion of these two promises. That's how I look at it. The nation Israel and their purpose to bring forth Messiah and Messiah himself, who brought forth salvation based on the promises of the Abrahamic covenant in Genesis 15, based in faith. Not the Mosaic covenant, which was a temporary covenant for Israel purposely. Salvation's based in the Abrahamic covenant and not in the Mosaic covenant. So I think Stephen's implying here that the accusations against him can't hold because they're based in the Mosaic covenant. The fact that he is talking about tearing down the temple, what Christ said about tearing down the temple, blasphemy, because he's talking about the completion of the new covenant and not to the Mosaic covenants, which the Pharisees and the Judean leadership held to. That gave them power and gave them money. So with the coming of this new covenant, Jeremiah 31 to 34, and by the coming of the Spirit and salvation, all promised in the Old Testament, it disrupted their tradition, over which they held power over the people. And he's saying, really, it all goes back to the Abrahamic covenant, for which we base our faith and future faith, and not to the Mosaic covenant. Because the Mosaic covenant now has been fulfilled, as we know from Romans 10:4, Galatians 3, and Galatians 5, and Hebrews 7, many other verses. Okay, let's stop there today. What we've talked about so far is the response of Stephen to his false accusers in the Jewish leadership. And he's brought up Abraham as a basis of our faith and salvation through the Abrahamic covenant. We'll continue on this amazing trek next time. I hope you'll join me then.
Thanks for listening to this episode of our podcast, Acts Verse by Verse. We hope you found the teachings both interesting and informative. Join us next week for another exciting episode. To listen to all episodes, please visit our website, teleiosresearch.com.